What's your name?
Tom Boyer.
Where are we at, Tom?
We're at SC Village.
What's the day?
It is January 29th.
And what's the event name?
It is the UWL SC Open.
So where did you get your start in paintball?
I started playing paintball in August of 1983 in Indiana, Southern Indiana, which is where I'm from. I was in a mall with my parents and we were in a bookstore. My mom said, "Hey, look at this," and it was Atwell's National Survival Game Handbook, I think is what it was. So got that. In the back was a directory of fields. There happened to be a guy in Columbus, which was like an hour away. So, like I said, sometime in August, talked with some buddies and called the guy, and he said, I'm having games this day, and we went over and played 007s with 12 grams and oil-based paint in the aluminum tubes. Orange and white, I believe, were the colors. Each team had their own color.
And you were on the same team all day?
Yeah, same team all day. I only remember actually shooting one person, and it was just a long snapshot, just like, oh, there's somebody over there, wham, and smacked him in the side of the neck, and he screamed really loud.
So that was August of '83, and you were shooting oil-based paint. And do you remember how much entry was for just you? For your renting your gun, buying paint, however much paint you bought?
I think it was $25 was the rental fee.
Yeah, the flat.
That got you, like 2 CO2s and maybe 20 rounds of paint.
Yeah.
And it was $2.50 a tube for more paint and 50 cents for each additional CO2.
Yeah, and so they were bolt action.
Yes, right, bolt action, nail spot.
They didn't have any other guns there.
No other guns. There was no magazine stop in them. So you put 10 balls in. Any way you cocked it when you had 5, you were good. After 5, it was a little bit of work to get the ball to drop in the breech.
Sure you pay for those extra 5 balls.
Yes.
So where did you play after that?
After that, I played again at that place probably 3 or 4 more times between the end of '83 and then into '84. There were a few times where I went there and everybody else didn't show up, so there were like 3 of us. So, some of the times we played, we didn't really get to do much of anything. But then later I was working in Atlanta and again using the field directory in the back of the book.
Yeah, you still have your same book.
Yeah, found a field there, played there a few times.
Do you remember what that field's name was?
No, I don't.
Was it a survival games franchise?
Yes, it was a National Survival Games franchise, and it was in the back of the book. It was on the south side. It wasn't actually, Atlanta. It was a suburb. I don't even remember which suburb.
Yeah. You don't remember the field name exactly, but were there any notable teams there?
Yes, Atlanta Blue was there, and it was just open play, but they were all there. That's more or less how their practices went. Yeah. So I played with them and against them throughout the day, the 2 or 3 times I went there. Yeah. And I remember being horrified when I saw one of them had his gun completely apart on his tailgate. It was like, oh my gosh, these guys take their guns apart. And that was scary. They had PVC pumps that they had made on their own for all their nail spots. Yeah. One of the guys, Doc, I think was his name, used the PG. He was the only guy with a Sheridan. Yeah. They usually ran in 3-man squads. How they described it, one guy was the point and then the other 2 guys were the pincers that came around.
How many people were at that field that day?
40 or 50,
so pretty good
maybe. Pretty good turnout. Much more there, of course, than in southern Indiana. Those were usually like maybe 20 people at those games.
Were about half the participants that day players on Atlanta Blue?
Yeah, probably. I mean, they were hanging out in a group, but 15, 20 guys probably.
Was it 1985 or 1986 when Atlanta Blue won the National Survival Games Championship? It must have been 85 because they had their pump handles, and that was their notable advantage. They really right.
Right. It was definitely around that time. I'm not real sure where in there.
Yeah, but they
it
had
all
their
fell.
pump handles, so
yes.
they went to compete.
Yes.
They probably that would have given them the advantage.
Oh,
Did you
yes.
notice anything else on their guns?
They had the field strip slot in there, which is what allowed the guy to take it apart on his tailgate. Yeah.
They cut the sear notch.
Right.
Strip.
So you didn't have to
Yeah.
bang the sear out with a hammer.
Gotcha. And you did not own your own equipment at that time?
No.
And what kind of face protection were you using?
I had some military goggles that were rubber framed, and I had found a motocross mask and just cut some X's in the bottom, and the mask would then attach through those. And of course it was black plastic or whatever, and I super glued some camo over the front.
Yeah, did a lot of the other players have face protection, or did they just have goggles?
There were a lot of woodstock masks at that time in Atlanta. That's about when those were readily available, and I think that came along with your rental package.
Okay, so they were renting them out.
Yeah. Now in Indiana in '83, it was goggles. They may have even been the shop goggles, not even UVEX. No, UVEX were later.
Where do you remember playing after that, after you got home from Atlanta?
Mostly around Southern Indiana at mostly outlaw fields at that time.
When did you buy your own equipment?
Not long after the first APG came out.
Okay, so it was still a couple years later.
Yeah.
It wasn't until 87.
Yeah, 87.
What was your first gun?
The first gun was a Brass Eagle Nightmare long barrel, ordered out of APG, or I called them directly out of APG.
Who did you call? Brass Eagle?
Brass Eagle.
Okay.
Yeah, in Canada.
And it would have been a brass one probably, right?
Yeah, it was the one with the real small knurled pump handle. Yeah.
And how did that do?
It was all right. It was kind of bad if you broke paint in it. It was a pain to take apart and get back together and not have it leaking.
What did you move on to after that?
PMI 1.
PMI 1?
Yeah, that direct feed, and then, well, I made it direct feed. I bought a lever changer, cut the bottom tube, put the lever changer.
Was it? Was it the Q changer, or was it a Quicksilver?
It was not a Quicksilver. It was.
Did it have like an X-shaped aluminum piece on the front?
Yeah, pretty much. It was the Q changer. I do
remember
believe.
where you bought that from?
I bought it from the local guy who was on the team, who was set up as a dealership. But I believe he said it was a Bud Orr changer, and I don't know if he got it straight from Bud or not. But
was that still before the end of
that's
87?
probably more 88 time frame.
Had you started playing on a team by that time?
Yeah, I mean, just the local bunch of us that hung out together. Yeah.
And what was your team name?
Bang Gang.
Bang Gang?
Yeah.
And did you guys play any notable events?
Not until really 89.
89? And what was the event in 89 that you played?
It was the Westport, which is a town way over on the east side of Indiana, had a team there that we played against regularly, just in rec ball outlaw stuff. But one of the guys on the team was on the town council there, and so during their town festival he convinced them to have a paintball tournament on the softball field. So we played at this Westport, the Battle of Westport is what it was, and it was hay bales and water tanks and large pieces of aluminum that are used for silos and stuff.
Yeah, like the aluminum kind of sheeting or the tin sheeting.
Yeah, the curved. Corrugated curved sheeting.
And so what year did you say that was?
That was 89.
89? Okay.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like an early speedball course, basically.
Yeah.
Had you guys seen speedball advertised?
Just in the magazines and all. Never played it anywhere.
So you saw the SC Village.
SC Village APG.
So you had your PMI 1 with direct feed with a Q changer.
Right.
Did you buy your rifle?
Yeah, I bought that about the same time
Same time.
as the PMI 1, because my wife was playing, so the PMI-1 became her gun, and I got to get a new one. So yes, then it was the KP rifle that I got from Aerostar.
Yeah, and you bought it with a direct feed adapter?
Yes, it was their modified direct feed Delrin pump, 10-ounce tank, thermo valve.
You bought it in person at the Aerostar store?
No, again, Dave, the guy on the team who was ordering things, he ordered it from them, but I specifically said, call Aerostar, order me this one. I later went to their store when I was working in Chicago. I stopped by their store and talked with Sam and saw that PS15 Marauder and some of the other stuff that he had there.
Was that in '89 also?
I can't say exactly when that was.
Earlier, huh?
May have been. I really don't recall what time frame that was.
So what do you remember about the Louisville Raiders?
Louisville Raiders were the big team nearby, and we practiced against them quite frequently. Their home field ended up being a field like 20 miles from my house called Screaming Pines, which was a Christmas tree farm that they made fields on. And then they eventually built a speedball field there too. And that was right before they started MSPA. Louisville Raiders were one of the big teams that helped start the Mid-South Paintball Association. Their badge has state flags of like Kentucky, Tennessee, Indiana, and I think Alabama on it. But the whole reason the Indiana is on there is because of the Louisville Raiders.
And when did the first MSPA events take place?
It had to be right around there, 89, 90. Again, dates are a little fuzzy.
And then how long did you play with the Bang Gang for? And did you guys compete at any?
Yeah, we went to the NAAPPA Nationals, the first NAAPPA Nationals in '93 that were at Hell Survivors.
So NAAPPA is
North American Amateur Paintball Players Association. I don't know.
That was at Hell Survivors in Hell, Michigan.
Yes. And the way the NAAPPA stuff worked, you had to play and qualify to be in the Nationals. So we had played at the Mill in Bloomington, Indiana, and qualified there.
As the Bang Gang.
Yes, as Bang Gang. Then went and played 5-man and 10-man. You didn't have to qualify for the 10-man, but the 5-man side you had to qualify for. And so we ended up second in that in 5-man in '93. We lost to Rob Stodinger from Baltimore Trauma fame while he was playing as a 16-year-old on a team Lone Wolf out of, I think, North Carolina.
You remember who was third?
Third would have had to have either been Dan Bonebreak and Phantom Force or Scotty Flint and the Bounty Hunters from Colorado. Chris Lasoya was there with Easy Company, but they didn't make it into the finals. That was '93.
This was in '93.
That was '93.
Okay. Gotcha.
They had camera crews there. There is a video of the event.
I don't think I've seen it.
Oh yeah, I have a copy.
Is it on YouTube?
No.
Oh yeah.
I'll just send you a copy.
So that was in '93, and you were still playing on Bang Gang.
Yes, still playing with Bang Gang.
So would you say that's one of the first big tournaments that you played? And then what kind of events were you playing after that?
Mostly just little local ones. We played SOPC, Southern Ohio Paintball Club events. Those were south of Cincinnati. They had a pretty good following. They would have 5-man events and 10-man events separately. But they would have teams from West Virginia and Pennsylvania coming. Pro Warriors were a big team locally there in Cincinnati. Direct Hit was another big team that was there. Joe West was there with Mohican Mad Dogs. It was a pretty good.
Joe West is J&J.
Yeah, Joe West is J&J, yes.
And what were you playing with in '93?
PMI 3s, back bottle, siphon tanks, smart parts barrels.
And then as the '90s went on, what teams were you associated with? What kind of equipment did you use?
Later, some of my guys started falling off, so Indy Sewer Rats was a team that we played against quite a bit and ended up playing with them. Somewhere in there also, while we still had Bang Gang, we ran some 7-man tournaments at what we call the barn lot, which was a barn lot. So it was bigger than a 5-man field. It had like 7 buildings in it, most of them large barns. Sewer Rats would come regularly. Killer Bees from Kokomo would come. Black Rain out of Indianapolis would usually come with a couple teams. Indy Magic was another team that would come. Guys from Indy Magic and Black Rain ended up being on Enemy and then on Aftershock. I still have them tell me regularly that barn lot tournaments were their favorite tournaments to play. Usually Purdue had cows. This guy took care of Purdue cows. They would arrive like 2 weeks before and would be confined to that same area, so it was quite juicy.
Yeah.
And
not only was the grass mowed, but there was fresh excrement.
Yes. So there was a cow pie award every year too, or every tournament.
Yeah.
So some of those guys have ended up with cow pie awards that they still have. I've seen pictures recently of their cow pie awards for being the guy who slips in one or has the most covering him. So then played with the Sewer Rats in 5-man local stuff for a while. We played some winter leagues around the area. Then a couple guys in Indiana decided they wanted to start a statewide league, and of course they based it off of Texas Captains Council and Florida Captains Council stuff, so it was Indiana Captains Council, or ICC. I helped run that as like a board member or whatever the first year and still played. Then there were a couple of calls that I didn't like how they went and how they were resolved, so I decided to volunteer to be the ultimate referee for the whole series. And so I did that for probably 5 years, at least 5 years, as we ran tournaments once a month through the spring and fall in Indiana. And had one event in Columbus that was an event that I organized that was at the Bartholomew County fairgrounds, where they had a racetrack and grandstands. And so we had 4 fields inside the arena, or whatever you want to call it, all netted up. We had 64 5-man teams and 36 3-man teams. So we had 100 teams. Every team had covered staging in one of the cattle barns with electricity and water every few feet, so it was really cool. They opened the concession stand, so that was there. National Paintball brought a trailer.
So what year was that?
I believe that was 2000.
And did you see a lot more growth around the area?
Because of the ICC, yes. Yeah, there were regularly 50 to 60 teams at events.
Yeah.
But that one in Columbus, inside the racetrack, was the largest one that we ran.
So I know you would probably be biased since you were the ultimate field marshal, but how did you feel the players' reaction was to that event and to the whole series in general?
Everyone really liked it. It all went really well until, I don't remember exactly what year it started to peter out, but the lower level teams felt like, because there was only like novice and amateur were the only 2 divisions, but even the lower level amateur teams felt like they could never beat the 4 or 5 upper level teams that were always making the final, so they decided it was time to defect to another one. There were never any prizes in the ICC. It was all just bragging rights. Rival series started up where you could win prizes, but the prizes were Spider knockoffs. You win first place, you get 5 Spider knockoffs from National Paintball. So, but the higher level teams didn't want to go play for 5 Spider knockoffs, so they didn't go. So the other teams felt, well, they now had a chance to win.
So what year did that series end, the ICC?
2002 or so, maybe 2003 even.
What were you doing after that?
After that, as the ultimate ref, I got to walk onto any field I wanted to and watch the games. Mostly I did that because I knew which games I needed to be there, so I could see what happened myself and not have someone come tell me what happened, so I could make my decisions instantly by what was happening. But that allowed me to see all of the good players. So I got all the little kids that were really good players, and we took them and started a team, NTK, which is Naptown Killers. And in 2004, we went to the San Diego, it might have been 2005. 2004, 2005, we went to San Diego NPPL, playing as Division 2 or 3, whatever their lowest one was at the time. So our very first event, we came in second. And for some reason, we were the first finals game on Sunday because we were the lowest division. New York Times was there and took pictures, and so my kids are in the New York Times on the front page talking about paintball. Because it was in San Diego, it was at the stadium, Qualcomm Stadium. So it was, they were making it up as a big deal.
And then, so does NTK still exist?
Sort of.
Are you still involved with it, or how long were you?
NTK was around through 2008. We bounced through the divisions. We actually ended up, I don't know if we'd say merging with Giovanni's Naughty by Nature. I don't know if you call it a merge or not, because Bear came and played with us and the name changed to Naughty by Nature. But we always said it was Naughty by Naptown. So I think 2008 we were Naughty by Naptown. In 2009, some of those kids quit playing. Some of them played on Aftershock's NPPL team, which was different from their PSP team. And that was somewhere in there is when Joy Division quit the NPPL. They gave their spot to Nick Sloviak, basically. And so he and Tommy O'Donnell and Aaron Tholey decided to play the NPPL as Aftershock with Rennick's blessing, but on their own mostly. So I helped coach them, and Brad McCurley was there in his first season, Tom Van Echteren, there were a couple others. So I coached them through that season. That had to be 2008. In 2009, Tommy took some of those people and bought into the NPPL version 3 or I don't know, 4, but he bought a pro spot, and Indy Mutiny was the team then. So I stayed on coaching them through probably 2011 or 12, doing just the NPPL stuff. Then also around 2010, started playing some of the UWLs. Played the first one in Chicago with Total Grief. Then after that, played with Chicago Underground, Failure to Flatline. I play with everybody. I'm playing with Black Sunday here. I played with Black Sunday in Tennessee this past year. So I've played for a number of UWL teams. And of course, Vigilante with the Pointers. And we've gone to Cancun twice, won both times there. We plan on some of us going over to England and playing in the UK Woodland Masters this year. It's a more traditional 5-man game, but it'll be fun.